Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. My name is Chris Rainey, co-founder here at HR Leaders, and I'll be your host for today's live panel discussion where we're going to be talking about how to develop a comprehensive roadmap for skills-based transformation. Now, before we jump in, I know there's some new people here. On the right-hand side, you have the live chat. So take a second to introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are, where you're tuning in from around the world. Drop a link to your LinkedIn profile. While you're there, connect with each other. Also, make sure you hit the green follow button on the top right hand side also, and that will send you an email with a link to the on-demand recording so you can send that to the team or catch up later. So take a second to do that now. With that being said, let me introduce you to our amazing panelists. We're joined by Lauren Orfis, who's the Chief People Officer at Orange Business. We've got Sarah Toby, who's a Vice President of People and Workforce Analytics at Kyndryl. Tim Young, Senior Vice President of People Operations at Pearson. And last but certainly not least, we've got Rebecca Warren, who's a Director of Talent Center Transformation at Eightfold AI. Nice to see you all. How is everyone?
Amazing.
Great.
Good, good. Hydrated, caffeinated, ready to go. Good, amazing. Tim, I'm gonna pick on you first. Let's just jump straight into the deep end, right? How do you approach defining and mapping new competency frameworks within your organization? Straight into the deep end with that question.
Yeah.
Let's go straight in.
Let me start by saying this is not easy, right? It's very complex. And as I look at kind of the journey we're in the middle of, we're not at the end saying we're successful or nor at the beginning. There's really two kind of main messages I feel like that since we're in the middle, I can kind of call that this is something you should be thinking about. The first one is as you're looking to define it, start with the strategy of the company, right? What does the company need to become? And how does the talent of the company really get you there? And let me just share it by example. So Pearson, where I'm at, is 180 years old, right? We have a storied long history. And it's really, and I guess the last few decades, really been around publishing and assessments. But our products, all of them, are really ripe for disruption, right? This is an era in the future that we know we can't be successful resting on what we've done in the past. And I'm sure that's fairly true for everyone in the audience. So as we've thought about talent and skills and the framework that we kind of build under that, we need to be thinking about our future. And that's where I would say, again, this first recommendation, as I think about what you need to do to approach the definition here, is to really take a hard look at what profiles, skills, and roles do you need to evolve yourself into the future. That's where you start. And I think, like in our case, we can't abandon who we are today just to jump into future skills. So there's a bit of a progress you need to go through. But one thing that I felt worked really good on this very basis, the strategy, is we did not make an HR-based skills or, competency framework. We started with our most senior executive leaders and said, you understand the strategy, you understand what you've got to become to be in the future. You need people and skills to do that. You tell us what families, what categories, what roles you need in the future. And that engaged them. That also meant that it was a bit future-proof, right? That we're getting. So that's the first one is start with the strategy, engage those people who really understand the strategy. The second one is simplicity. Because this one, it's going to bite you if you don't really focus in on making your framework more simple. Because when you get to the rest of this conversation, when we're talking about skills, if it's not simple, then that is going to be compounded when you're thinking skills. And let me just put some numbers around this. When we looked at this internally, we reduced our job families, kind of the top end of this competency framework, by 75%. Right?
Wow.
Meaning that we shrunk down to only 6 families. We forced ourselves into 6 broad families. And then the bigger number, though, is when we look at the roles associated under those families, we shrunk it by 93%. We went from about 1,500 in use today down to about 120. Now, there's a little bit of cheating going on there, right? As we thought about it, we wanted to think about the skills and these profiles from junior to senior as the same role, so that we could then build in the skills in the future that says, instead of renaming the roles as you move up the organization, that is just one role that enables you now to look at the skills as they grow and develop and expand. And anyway, that's enabled us, that simplicity has really enabled us as we look into the future of the skills portion of this to be much more focused and easier to maintain, I would say. So there's a lot I could go after on this one. Those are the two main themes I would say as you get started.
Feel free to jump in. Don't wait for me. I saw you all nodding. I saw a lot of nodding throughout that. So feel free to jump in.
Tim, I was going to ask you, I love that idea of simplicity and making it future proof, right? That's what we talk about a lot at Eightfold is how do we set you up for success and tied to the outcomes of the business, right? As opposed to we're just going to do this project because everybody's doing it. So when you're setting up a more simple framework inside your organization, does that allow then for folks to be more flexible as they move, like taking out some of the hierarchy of going from job to job and focusing more on the skills that they have and allowing people to flex inside the organization? Was that one of the things that you were thinking when you did that?
Absolutely. I think less is more here. And let's just take a common job like a software engineer, right? There's a lot of different flavors of that. And we could have gone complex and created a potpourri of different types of software, cloud, AI, right? Like all of that spectrum. But at the core, we know that someone could go from beginning to end, from the bottom to the top as a software engineer. But if not, then if there's only a few other neighboring options or other directions they can go, if they have 500 or 1,000 to choose from, too complex, it's not going to happen. But if they only have a few and those are broadly defined within them, then it's easier to move, I would say, from pillar to pillar within those roles. So the idea being that it's just easier to navigate. You have fewer choices, yes, but it's kind of good to have fewer choices when you're trying to make career decisions, or if you're looking at it from the top, when you're trying to determine what is my composition, if you have fewer numbers to look at, it's much, much easier.
Yeah, we did something fairly similar because, right, like the truth of the matter is that we all know folks with the same job title who actually bring really different sort of value and talents to the role. And so for a lot of these, there's not like one way to be good at something. So we went through a similar kind of strategic process to, I think, what you folks did, where we created what we call like the global career and skills framework, but massively rationalized the job profiles, and then attached skills and competencies to each of those. But one of the big benefits that we found is that it's really helpful to have that transparency and the simplicity to support folks in like annual conversations so that they can talk about their career roadmap and where they want to go and how they can actually really tactically and clearly develop on their journey because you can see those ties. So we found that to be really powerful. And as a tech services company, we're finding that we're really advertising that capability in the course of recruitment. So it's been really helpful. The other thing for us, though, is that we're a professional services firm, right? So we're staffing folks on projects. And so for us, job profile was helpful, right? Software engineer is important and helpful, but it wasn't actually the level of granularity we needed to fill the roles. And so that allowed us to have a structure, but also have more nuance to be able to match someone to a project, right? But then we also use sort of a skills graph database, so we can see which skills are closer or farther away to other skills. So by doing that and having these job profiles with skills attached and projects with skills attached, we can also see who's a closer or farther match and whether we have learning that can kind of get someone from one project to another based on their skill set. So using the job profiles as kind of a rough guide and then the skills to get more granular has been really helpful for us too.
Smart.
It's not
And
a,
that's
it's
what
not
I
a
was
small lift though.
Well, that's what I was going to call out is you have to have that learning piece connected, right? I'm sure, Tim, you
Yeah.
have that as well. If you don't have that as the glue to say, here's where you want to go, here's where you're at, here's where you want to go, or here's where we think you should go, right? Figuring out your proficiency levels and then making sure that there are learning and development opportunities tied to it where it's not a lot of work, right? I mean, I think a lot of folks are busy in their day-to-day, and they're not going to go and say, gosh, ho-hum, I wonder on this site which class I should take, right? It needs to be easy, connected, and show them what the path looks like if they take the traditional path, the non-traditional path. How do you put those learning pieces together? Because that's what drives that engagement and that proactivity in their career, right?
Yeah, and to add on this, I think we are used in the traditional framework to look at the jobs, job role, job profiles, and through the evolution of our companies, Orange Business is also in the tech and professional services business. We see that we have been like heading up job referentials on top of job referentials, and it's at the end of the day, it really comes back to actually the skills, because through a different set of skills, you can actually jump to another job role, to another job. So it's very important also to move the way people are thinking and business leaders are thinking, HR professionals are thinking from, a purely job, referential to more like a skill-based. I think that's the purpose of the exchange today, but a skill-based, because sometimes you identify that actually one of your HR team members is doing some programming and Gen AI for leisure, and enjoys it, and actually it gives opportunities to grow into a different kind of job role. So I think it's that's what can really make a difference, and it's a different way to look at things when we look at job evolutions.
I love that, Lauren, because there's so many skills that exist within our teams and businesses we just don't know, right? If you looked at my CV, I was at the same company for 10 years, but if you was basing my skills based on my CV when I joined, I learned a lot more in those 10 years. I had an example recently. I was chatting with a CHRO who found out that someone in their team was like really proficient as a prompt engineer, and had sort of been doing courses outside the business, and I had no idea, and it just came up during their one-on-ones. And now that person's head is basically head of prompt engineering for the HR team, and all of the different tech companies that they're working with, they're all turning on their agents, right, as we speak. Now that's a brand new role that's been created within the HR function of actually, we need someone who's going to be a prompt engineer to get the most out of all of these different technologies and solutions that we have. And obviously, luckily that surfaced in a conversation, but rarely does that happen. So we need to be able to map that and be more conscious about how we do that as well. So I love that.
If you have your skills mapped, right, and you can see what courses people are taking, and then you see then what roles they move into, you can actually learn more about your organization and what's actually happening on the ground, right? You have your strategic top-down planning, what you think you need in order to grow. But then there's actually, what's happening grassroots. And so there's real insight to be gained by just watching what's going on the ground as well, I think.
Yeah. Someone asked in the chat, it's great that they agree around linking it back to the organizational and business objectives, but they said, what does that practically look like? Like what does that look like? Is it you grabbing all the executive team in a room and linking that back? Like, well, practically, how do they approach? It's great for us to say it and we all agree, but practically, what steps should they take to realize that and make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be unique based off of the willingness, I would say, of the executive team. We had the great benefit of a CEO who was really bought into this idea and brought it to the executive leadership team and said, guys, and here's some real examples. We need more product people. We need more integrated sales people. We need certain technical skills that we don't have today. Looking at our framework, I can't tell you how many we have. Our current state, right? Current state framework. I can't tell you how many we have or what level they are. We need you to tell us what your business needs so that we can design around that. So again, like, in order for us to become a more product-oriented company, in order for us to infuse more technology in, those senior leaders know that. They if not, they shouldn't be there, right? They know that. And so in order for us to really get a great sense, I mean, we could have gone the HRBP route. We could have taken some different back roads in, but it was great for us to literally get them in and say, here's the value we're going to create for you. we're going to in the future, and some of the things like, for example, Sarah said, we're going to be able in the future to tell you more about your organization and really link that to results. But first, we need to know what you need in order to be successful. So I think just getting that story right and getting the right sponsorship and the executive leadership team so that you can come back with the right types of roles as the foundation, and a little bit of a sense of like, what are you lacking today? And so that we can incorporate that into the plan. If there's a whole segment of talent we don't have, let's think about that and how we can then incorporate that into our workforce plan.
I think you've got to connect the dots all the way down the line from your senior leaders. That message has to go all the way down to your recruiting team, to your front end workers, to tie everything that's being done to a business objective. That's one of the things that I talk to folks about, is make sure that when you're hiring people, you understand not just what the hiring manager wants, but where does that tie back to a business objective? What broader result are you trying to achieve by hiring this person? So it's either raising the bar or looking for different skills, getting out of the box of, I need to fill this job, and to say, what is this going to do for us today? But also, what is this going to do for us down the road, right? That future proofing that we talked about. Because if we're just hiring for in the moment, right, we know the shelf life of skills right now is what, 2 years? So half-life is, 10 months. So if we're just hiring for today and now and taking the hiring manager's word saying, I need the purple squirrel with the, top hat and rainbow sunglasses, and you find that perfect person, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to tie to a longer objective. So we have to ask the questions, and you have to cascade that communication all the way down from the leaders and what they're trying to achieve all the way down. Like that change management and that idea of consistency and communication is key throughout the organization for the shift to a skills-based organization, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's a great opportunity as well for the HR community from the top to very much on proximity base to really be sitting at the table of the definition of the strategy, not just being there to execute, but to really challenge the C-level executives up to the local managers on saying, okay, you want to recruit that guy or that lady with this rainbow glasses and whatever, but why and what do you have in mind in the future? Because that we are always looking for the special candidate, that very special candidate who doesn't exist. But at the same time, how do you make sure that this person becomes the person that you need consistently around, on the time to help grow your business, to help, reach your business objectives as well. And I think it's really, a key opportunity for the HR community to have a different role, being a lot more proactive in anticipation. I think that based on what Tim just said as well, strategic workforce planning gets all suddenly a completely brand new value for the business, and we need to be able as well ourselves to include these new skills, and be able to be not there just to execute and answer the question, but also to be able to challenge and help the business to define its objectives based on the skills and resources that could be available or that could be made available.
Well, I think that's one of the things we think about. So it's one of the things we haven't talked about yet is governance, right? And how to actually think about managing the system. But from the point of engaging the business, a skills system is a living, breathing thing, right? And one of the things that we pay attention to is whether the business is coming to us with questions or suggestions about how to change, maintain either the skills themselves or the processes around the skills. And so we pay attention to who's asking questions, who's engaging, and who is not, so that we know whether they feel like we're adding value, right? And that they're leveraging it to the greatest extent. So you can actually see that as the system rolls out too.
Yeah, it's important. I love all the points everyone's making. I think, Tim, one of the things I wanted to highlight that you said earlier was that you're bringing them on board early in the process, so you don't need the buy-in. Right, they're already on board from you're co-creating this with them. It's not something you come and present at the end and hope they're really excited and engaged, right? Because otherwise they're like, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for me, right? And me, my function, me personally as well. So if you bring them on board, and that's the advice back to that question earlier, bring on board those leaders as early as possible. And as Lauren said, to really take charge. It's an opportunity for HR to really lead this and not just become order takers, like which traditionally happens unfortunately still to this day in many companies. So I think this is a real opportunity for HR and the business as well. So I want to kind of segue a little bit, Rebecca, to you in terms of how this sort of impacts talent retention and acquisition in your and specifically within your organization. So how has this shift to skills based impacted talent retention acquisition in your organization?
Yeah, so we are a skills-based organization using AI, right? And so I'll use myself first as an example, and then I'd love to give an example of a client that we work with who has done this as well. So my background is in talent acquisition. I have led teams in TA from agribiz, CPG, restaurant, retail. And you notice I work for a tech company, right? So I didn't have tech in my background. And actually, someone had reached out to me from the company and encouraged me to apply for a customer success role. Like, I don't know tech, I don't know customer success, but it's somebody that I had worked with, not directly, but as a vendor partner. And she said, because of the how you act and the way that you treat people, we want someone like you in our organization. As we were just building, we were small. And I was like, okay. So came on board and helped to build out the customer success team for the last 3 years. And now I've moved over into a role into talent transformation and marketing. Did you hear marketing in my background? No, I don't have that either. But because of the way that our organization looks at skills and looks at how those transfer, we aren't limited by saying, oh, well, you belong in TA. If you're not in HR, you're not any good for the organization. I've learned so much. And I've also been able to apply my skills in customer success in a unique way because other folks that we brought on board don't have those same set of skills. So when you look at focusing on skills as opposed to fill this job, you have a whole different unique set of backgrounds, understandings, experiences, and it gives you a more diverse way to approach problems, looking at things from a different lens. So we, of course, have software that does this, but we also have it embedded in our organization that there are no boundaries when we think about moving from role to role. So it has, I think, exponentially increased the impact that we've been able to have, reduces churn, reduces layoffs. Like, if we have a really narrow role, like I was saying before, you have a really narrow role, somebody fits in it, and when they've done what they need to get done, they're out. When you look at a broader sense of skills, you get a chance for folks to move and grow and learn inside the organization. But the challenge is if you don't know, and Sarah, you were saying this, if you don't know what skills you have in your organization, you're not going to be able to do that. And so we have a customer, Vodafone, who wanted to do this huge transformation. They took on this huge project, right, looking at data, systems, processes, culture. And if you don't have all of those things aligned up front, right, you're doomed to fail. So they're looking at all of the pieces, and they knew that skills and understanding had to be the foundation. They didn't have any idea, not only what they needed to hire for, but what they actually had inside of their organization. So that was their first step of saying, hey, we really need to understand out of our 98,000 people, what skills do we have? Where do we need to upskill, reskill, redeploy? How do we use the talent that we already have inside of our organization to better fit our goals, as well as how do we pour into our people, instead of just leaving them in the box, and if they're unhappy with the box, they go. So they spent a lot of time doing that. They knew that skills were the glue to also put talent acquisition into the picture as well. And I talked about learning too. So they were able to connect the dots, focused on skills, understand what was in their organization, and then on the front end, on the talent acquisition side, they were able to reduce their time to hire, reduce their cost by hire by 50%. They have a personalized career site that takes skills and matches folks coming into the organization, not based on the job they think that they should apply for, but based on their skills. They come into the organization. It's easier for recruiters to find talent because they're matching on skills as opposed to job titles or backgrounds or years of experience. And they've been able to access a larger, more diverse talent community. And I think that's where, when we democratize the use of skills, when we harmonize that and put people on a playing field about not only what skills do they have in their back pocket, but what do they want to do, right? When we think about skills and interests and passions, how do we upskill folks to be able to get to that next level? So Vodafone really found a lot of value in focusing on skills first and then putting that all the way through the organization, tying it to talent acquisition. So they're bringing in the right people with that agility to be able then to take their organization to the next level. I could talk more about it, but I'm going to stop there.
I can say we could hear the passion as well. I'm gonna be quiet in case the panelists have any questions, because you shared
Yeah,
a lot there.
I
That was
do
a
have
lot.
question, Rebecca, and maybe you or Sarah Laurent will have a similar or something to answer, because this has bothered me a lot, which is I love everything that you've said, but how do you know that the skills in these profiles are accurate? How do you test whether or not the skills listed are skills that are worth hiring for, right? Meaning like the credentialing of it, or just assessing that, testing it against, like, I've self-identified as a rocket scientist, so but what's the process that you go by to make sure that after you've gone through all this work, that the skills listed, the data you're receiving back, are actually valid?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think there's a couple ways to look at it, either from external hiring and also from internal. So one of the things that we really talk about with our customers, and our customers have told us that's really important, is not just to have somebody fill out a profile, say, I am like a rocket scientist, right? You then start having those proactive conversations with your leaders. And so your leaders can go through and say, okay, you've assessed as this particular position, we've said, here are the skills we need and here are the proficiency levels. Let's have a conversation. How does that come together, right? So you assess your proficiency as high, and we'd put you as medium. So you have that proactive conversation that stays out of just a mid-year or an annual review. And you say, okay, so we have a disparity here. Let's talk about it. Let's get you the learning to get you to where you want to be. Or let's say, hey, maybe this isn't the right role for you. Maybe we need to think about something else. So I think the first thing for us is, you can automate a lot. You can use AI a lot, but it comes down to that conversation, right? Like I just heard this from a peer of mine, where treat AI as an intelligent yet inexperienced intern, and then you layer on the human on top of that, right? So when you look at the skills that the system says, and then you have conversations. And so it drives a proactive ability for managers and teams to be able to have conversations that are dynamic and continuing, as opposed to saying, get to mid-year and all of a sudden your employee's like, what? I had no idea that was how you thought, right? So the other thing I'll say on the front end real quick, and then I'll turn it over, is moving from looking at resumes, looking at less of a chronological resume and a functional resume, looking at a functional profile. What do folks use in their day-to-day? And when you're interviewing, I used to be a behavioral-based interviewing fanatic. I have tempered that now, adding in situational questions as well as opinion questions, and doing some role play, because anybody can tell you, I've got this, this, and this. But if you're hiring somebody, say for a recruiter, and you actually role play through what it takes to hire somebody in the way that it would actually happen, you get a whole bunch of different information than if somebody just says, I'm really good at this. So hopefully that was helpful. Sarah, I could flip it over to you or to Laurent to you
Yeah,
as well.
I totally agree with everything you just said, right? All of this is really decision support for the actual humans, and we can't forget that. I think, Tim, to your point, I don't have an answer for you, but it's something we're struggling with too, right? Because we don't want to leave any data on the table, right? And so we do have the opportunity to generate different skills from different sources, right? So declared skills granted by external bodies like certifications, but also things like skills proposed by a manager, skills inferred from a CV, or, and I think this is the one that we hear a lot, skills that have been demonstrated in the course of a project, right? Demonstrated in the real world. And I think we're kind of putting together what that looks like, because in theory, you'd want to use these skills potentially for different skills use cases, of which there are many, as we've discussed. And there's now no small diversity of opinions on these things. So, you know, we are aware that there's more information out there than that we are leveraging in sort of our skills ecosystem. But the strategy behind that, in addition to the technology, which I actually think is a bit of the simpler problem, is something that we're working through right now. But it comes back to, what do you actually want to use them for? So I think that's where we're trying to start.
Yeah, Tim, most people I spoke to about this, I spoke to hundreds of CHROs, they're like, hey, Chris, we're leading with trust. Right? On this, yes, there may be a few outliers that puts, you know, I'm a rocket scientist or, you know, whatever it may be, right? But we're leading with trust. We're giving, empowering our employees, right? Not micromanaging and checking. And, you know, is it exactly, do you exactly have that skill, you know, this, and really leading with trust to do that. And they're seeing that, yeah, there will be a couple, there'll always be a few people that kind of, but you don't want to kind of punish the rest, right? By creating those guardrails. And as everyone else has just said, it's the conversations that really that it informs, and it generates those conversations, right? By having them in. Otherwise, you just wouldn't know, as well. So I don't think anyone solved that, Tim, specifically. And I don't think we almost shouldn't, because I feel like it should always involve the human touch and the conversation. So if anyone comes along and says, we've claimed it, it's perfect, we know exactly all of these things, I'll be very wary of someone that's done that. I do want to link this back to, Sarah, the question we had that we discussed around focus on skills in terms of how you develop your workforce. You're an interesting organization. You know, you span off out of IBM. I always forget the employee numbers, around 80,000.
80,000.
80,000, right? World's largest startup, as I know the team likes to say, as well. So you've gone through this transformation. I'm sure this is one of the reasons why you looked at this as part of that. How has that then evolved into the way you upskill and the learning and development side?
So it's at the core of everything we do, honestly. So not only are skills core to how you get staffed on projects, right? But they are core to all your conversations with your managers, as well, as we discussed, and your learning journey. So we are moving towards a place where we want everyone's personalized learning journey to be based on their skills, their interests, their potential career path, weighed in by the manager, and aligned to our strategy, right? So that's where we'd like to go. And if we, and that is unique to every single individual, how they fit into those constellation of things, and should have the data and insights available for every single member of that constellation to be able to support those conversations. And for us, that's one of the big value propositions we have to the technical and consulting talent that's coming on board, right? Is that we're very focused on making sure that, to Rebecca's point, we're not hiring talent for today, right? We are hiring talent that's going to grow and evolve with us on our transformation, because we are very aware the only thing that we know is that we're not going to be where we are now. Right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
That's the only thing that we can be sure of.
Yeah.
So, but that is part of the active value proposition we are providing to our employees, and trying to set up those conversations in the right way, but then also be able to provide that technical support that will help take them along that journey. So it's exciting. To Tim's point, we are partially through that journey. But for us, it's been very core.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it is a journey. There's no end to this. So everyone's like, it's always going to be a journey. There's no destination because it's constantly going to be evolving, right? And it's something that you should all think about. And it's really exciting, Sarah, right? Because this is the first time we've had the technology and data to create customized learning at scale. We just haven't. It's been a dream. I mean, I spoke to many CLOs over the years. Have always told me this is my dream to move to from static learning to dynamic learning, customized at scale, meeting the individual where they are. Right. So this is true. This is right now. We're here. It's difficult.
Customizing the content, right?
Yes.
To the person, not only their background, their experience, but their skill set, right? So
Yeah.
you now start to customize content exactly for the individual in the context of this broader journey. Yeah.
Yeah, even the way they learn, right? In Atlas Copilot, what we're developing for HR leaders, we've just added the ability in 2.0 to when you choose your learning pathway, you can say, I just want this all video.
Right.
I want this all audio. I want this all text-based. And I want it in this language.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you meet people where they're at, right? Like in terms of how they want to learn and consume. For me personally, I would love it all in audio. That's how I learn. So I'm more likely to go through that journey
But I think
as
there's
well.
real power from a retention perspective to be able to provide that employee experience, right? There's real value there for that.
Yeah.
And
Go
sorry,
ahead.
you have to also to be aware that now everything is available for free and it's very easy. You have like all content available, through our partners on the tech side, or you go on YouTube and everything. So the question is really, how do you move from this world of opportunities where employees can get lost very easily to actually driving, recommending alongside their skill base, because not everybody can become a rocket scientist in 2 days after listening to three YouTube videos or watching 3 YouTube videos. So it's really actually how you can move towards this recommendation. In Orange Business, we are going through a massive transformation right now. You spoke about Vodafone, that might be something quite similar. And actually, we put the upskilling and reskilling path as part of our strategy and our transformation. And we are really recommending. So we are really working on the data we have for our employees, seeing also as well where we want them to be or where they could be as well based on their skill set. And then taking them as well through this, it's kind of old-fashioned, but 70-20-10, meaning that a lot of the skills are actually learned through content, but the majority of the skills are learned through practice. So how can we help them practice the new skills? Also, to answer Tim's questions earlier, demonstrate that they are actually knowledgeable and able to be performing in a certain type of skills. And I think it's very important. So if we as HR don't take the lead on that, the employees will be taking their own paths and then leaving us, or being completely off track compared to what we want. So it's quite it's quite challenging, but we need to be there. There is a need, and I think now what is really making a difference is the ability of the young candidates, of the talents, the ability to learn, to continuously develop their skills. And it's actually what we are looking at when we grow people and where we hire people, or even when we want to help people evolve in the organization.
I know we're already over time, but I knew we wouldn't get through all the questions on there, but there's so much more we could go into as well. But before I let you all go, first and foremost, thank you for everyone for sharing. This is almost just, we just scratched the surface of this conversation, and so many practical pieces of advice and takeaways for the audience. So thank you so much. Before I let you all go, one sort of parting piece of advice or takeaway from the conversation, and then we'll say goodbye. Tim, we'll start with you.
Thank you. First of all, I love these panelists. You all were just fantastic, and I learned a lot. And I would say my takeaway has been and this is true with a lot of things in life, is there is no end point of this journey. We are on this, this is going to be cyclical. It's going to be ongoing. And even though I love beginnings and endings to projects, this is one that we've got to continue to refine. And even though I'm in the middle of it, I'm always going to be in the middle of it, right? So I think that's
Yeah, you're not alone, everyone. It's fine. Yeah. Laurent?
Well, great panel. Thank you, because it's very, enriching discussion, and I think we could, discuss for hours about that. But the continuous journey is definitely, something that that is coming out, and as well, the fact that the difference will be the ability to learn. I think, and that's I think. One of the key, differentiating elements that we are looking for in, when we hire new candidates.
Is for them to keep learning, keep growing, keep developing. I love that. Sarah?
I think for me, two things. Moving to a skills-based strategy is complex and it's not a small lift, but that it can really help organizations be more agile as the pace of change continues to increase. So there's massive payoffs, but that we're just getting started.
Love that. Last one, at least, Rebecca.
Yeah, I'll tag on to that. I think it's a confusing journey for some. It is rewarding. I think when you tie it to your business objectives, when you tie it to your strategy, it becomes less overwhelming. But I will say, look at your big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Take the big project, but then do small bites. Take the time. It's not going to happen overnight. You don't get to be a rocket scientist in 2 days, and you certainly don't turn into a skills-based organization overnight. So play the long game, but take those small bites and continually make progress. Don't get frustrated. Don't give up. Continue to ask the question and drive towards that goal, but look at it as a long game as opposed to something that's going to happen quickly.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll just say to Sarah's point on a personal note, we're a small team here, and during the pandemic, we lost 95% of our revenue because it was all in-person events and workshops that we did around the world. Because we knew the skills in our team, we pivoted to a digital, which is what we're doing right now, within a couple of weeks, because we understood that, one of our team members in his spare time loves live streaming. And this is a true story. And I said, hey, would you want to be a head of live streaming? We're going to build this TV studio. No idea what we're doing, right? But we knew that those skills existed. Oh, we had 2 people that love video editing. So we had all of these kind of skills that existed in the business, and we pivoted within a couple of weeks, but obviously built the studio out, smaller version than this and scaled. And we 5x'd our revenue that next year. So we went from nearly going out of business to, because we understood that those skills existed. And no one's ever fully ready. Let's just be clear on that. I speak to many CHROs who's the first time sitting in a seat as the CHRO. L'Oreal, Stephanie, amazing. 20 years career, everything in L'Oreal but that, and now she's a CHRO. She's like, Chris, of course I'm not ready. I'm learning, I'm growing, but the transferable skills are there as well. So that was just a small example of disruption, innovation, and change. And now my organization is moving into the AI space. And now our listeners are saying, Chris, we want to consume your content using AI so we can get instant answers to our questions, because I don't always have an hour to listen to a panel, although we very much love them. So you constantly have to be constant innovation. The pace of change, I've never seen it so, in my lifetime anyway, it's only increasing as well. So if you don't move to skills-based organizations, you will be left behind, and you will lose talent as well. And also it's exciting to do it. So do it as well. There's apart from that, and take the lead. Apart from that, thank you everyone for tuning in all over the world. And there's like over 1,000 of you here. So thank you for joining wherever you are in the world. We appreciate you taking the time out to upskill yourself by joining this session as well. So we appreciate all of you. As always, thank you so much to our friends at Eightfold for joining us and bringing the panel together. Directly beneath this video, there's a giant button there. If you click on that, it will send you a link, and you'll be able to learn how some of the world's leading organizations are building their talent, looking at and building upon their talent's existing skills. There's some great case studies there and examples for you. So make sure you click on that. Apart from that, next time you see us will be for the AI HR Summit. So we're going to be going big on this to end the year. We're going to have 90 chief HR officers sharing real life use cases on how they're leveraging AI right now. 2 days, 16 panels. We're going to have around 10,000 CHROs join us from all over the world. So super excited to have you all with us. This is a truly a moment in time, an exciting moment in time for all of us to be transforming the profession together. So I'm looking forward to that. Apart from that, wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.